Hey guys, it's Rory from A&S Gear. We're upstairs with the DSR Plus, and the one I have sitting here has the mechanical frame installed on it already. Now, as you can see, I have the original frame right here with the electronics, the original electric solenoid, or solenoid. Most solenoids are electric, not all. And then I have the original grips right here. So what we're going to do is take the electronics out of this. We're going to put them into the mech frame, put the single trigger electric trigger in, and then convert the mech frame into an electric frame for single trigger. You'll understand as we go along. It sounds weird and like, why would you want to do that? But I think it's pretty cool. So the first thing we're going to do is get the front grip off so that we can expose, I'll put that over there. The frame screws, take the rear bolt out so that we can get to the rear frame screw. And we're going to separate the two frames right here. And then we're going to put electronics in. Put that up there. Do that up there. All right, we've got that set up. Remember, we talked about before in the other videos, you don't need to remove the battery terminal wire or the eye wire when you're running the mechanical frame. You just leave it alone and keep it in there. That way, if you ever want to convert back to the double trigger electric or convert this to the single trigger electric, you have all that stuff ready to go. We've already have our ASA on the bottom, so we don't need to mess around with that at all. We will need to remove our solenoid up and out, and then we will need to pull out the trigger. So we're going to take these 4 screws off the top. You can pull that up and out right there. All right, now we can go ahead and start getting our trigger set up. Looks like we're going to need to remove the safety also. Let me make sure. This is the first time I'm actually putting the electronics into the mech frame. And blah, blah, blah. Insert the safety hole plug. Yeah, it does say you need to put that in, but it does not say remove the safety out of the gun. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to get this up and out. I'm going to need my glasses. So the safety spring right there, which kind of helps keep everything in place. We're going to remove that. Then we can put that in there. So that plugs up the safety hole, so we don't have that sitting in the way. And then we've got all these bits and bobs right here. So this is going to go into here. Let's figure out how that goes in. So we've got our plate so that we can put our trigger in. We've got our pivot pin, which is going to go through our bearing right there. Then we've got our 2 adjustment screws, which are going to go in on this side right here. And our pivot pin is going to go in through there. So let's look and see real quick which direction that goes. Spring carrier into top of frame. So it looks like it's just going to slide down inside of here. Just like that. It just drops right in. That's real easy. I like that. It makes it real nice. And it's got, if we look on the bottom of it right there, there's a little nub that will allow us to put the spring on there so the spring can push back against the trigger right there. All right, so let's put that back in. It just drops right down inside. We could drop our trigger in, take our trigger pin, run it through, Allen key, that's pretty, putting that trigger screw in right there is pretty tight. But you just got to get it in there. I think it's going through just the bits right there that it hasn't ever been through yet. And so it's just a little bit tight. But the trigger moves freely, which is good. Right there. Just want to make sure everything looks right inside there before I move on. Everything looks good. Now I'm going to take my adjustment screws, like my travel, pre-travel, post-travel setting screws, and put them in. And those obviously can be adjusted later on to wherever you want them to be set. And then we can put our spring in. Now that part could be a little bit tricky. You want to make sure you're working in a place where you don't want to lose this spring, because this is your trigger return right here. There we go. All set up on there. You can see the spring up inside there. All right. Well, let's move on to the next step. So now we've got to take this apart. So we want to take our plate off of here. That's going to come off there. And we want to get this off of here. And take this off of there. And then once that's off, we can remove the OLED screen by pushing it out. So we've got that off. Then we can flip this over. We can do one, and two, and three. That will allow us to take our board out. Now when we get this board out, we've got all this cabling that we need to kind of be considerate of getting it out of the gun. So we got that out like that. And we can get that out of there. All right. We set that to the side. Now this is going to go in here. Kind of like that. Let me just see where we're at here. There we go. So we're going to come around back to this side. We're going to take our two screws. Mount our board back in. Lined up right in there. Slightly off. looks like this is going into that little insert that we put in there. So it might take just a second to find that hole right there. There we go. All right, so that's there. Then we run this forward. And where we find that hole right there, we're going to put this screw that we took out back in. And this one has a little O-ring on it. Has a little cushion. I'm going to make sure that we keep that. And then let's go ahead and put that in there. All right, there we have that set up. Wow. Now we're going to take out our little plug here. This is our OLED screen plug. And get rid of that. Put that to the side. We're going to need to put our board back in. So we're going to line that up. We're going to make sure the pins at the bottom line up correctly and go in. They did. Now we can take our joystick button. Put that back in there. Take our little screen. Put that on there. Put in our screw. One thing I do find when I've ever switched these out or we do swaps or whatever, and you're putting this back in, this little gasket, when you put this plastic screen on, the gasket gets trapped underneath it. And you kind of have to go around the side of it and pick at it and make sure that it fits up into that little slot right there. Otherwise, this kind of just smashes it down. Then we come over here to our body. We take our solenoid. We do not use the screws that came with it or that you had when it was mounted up. And then inside your bag, you'll have this little weird square black O-ring. You want to take that one out, and as you can see on the original one, it sits right there on the mechanical one. So we want to take this one. This is a spacer. We want to put it around this one. So it creates that space and it pushes this into the right spot, or it creates the pressure from the frame against the solenoid to make it seal. We're going to use those posts that we put in originally when we did our mech conversion. We're going to push that down. We're going to plug our solenoid back in. Remember, be careful with the wiring. All right. That's in now. We're going to take our new frame, or I should say our mech frame, with our electronics in it, and put our screw. Put our screw in for our frame. Put our screw in for our rear frame. Give it a little snug. Put in our bolt. Put our front grip on. And if we were going to go all the way through, we would then put our rear grip on as well. But let's see. Everything's working. Eyes are working. Solenoid's working, so we got a good setup right here. We threw our grips back on and we'd be ready to go. So there you have it. That is converting the mech frame over into the single trigger electric frame with the electronic components originally in your first frame. It's a pretty cool setup. 3 different setups in one when you buy the mechanical conversion frame. I really, really like it. So if you want to really check out your DSR, check these out. They're available on the website. the mech frame, all the variations of it for the DSR Plus at ansgear.com.